When we talk about the big three, we are talking about the three most influential and popular anime of the 2000s. It's Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach. These were not just anime, they were cultural powerhouses that defined an entire generation of fans, introduced millions in the West to anime, and left a mark so deep that their influence can not only still be felt, it will always be felt. Even tomorrow, or 10 years from now, or even when you're 60, or even when you're old enough to tell your grandkids about them. This might be hard to imagine for younger fans, but back in the 2000s, school was wild. People would argue or even throw hands over whether Ace was reckless or Itachi was justified. But why? What makes them so iconic, so unforgettable, and so impossible to replace? To figure that out, we need to step back and look at why these stories connected with fans all over the world in the first place. Sure, it's about epic fights and legendary characters, but it's so much more than that. It's the themes, the motives, and the emotional impact. It's about the way this anime made us feel and the lessons they left behind. Alright, let's get into it. The first point I want to talk about is a common misconception. You see, the big three have become too mainstream, which is why many think that they are just about the flashy shonen fights and aura moments. And yeah, those fights were epic, but what really set this anime apart were the universal themes that connected with so many of us. Take Naruto for example. It's the story of an outcast, a lonely kid that everyone rejected. But instead of giving up or going rogue, Naruto worked his way up to become the hero of the very village that once rejected him. His story taught us of the value of never giving up, the strength of friendship, and the power of forgiveness. Honestly, even the hardest grown-ass man must have at least teared up when the Leaf village welcomed Naruto back after the Pain invasion. Next is One Piece. Haters often try to generalize it by saying that it's just about the power of friendship. But One Piece is so much more. This isn't just a story about pirates. It's about chasing your dreams, fighting for freedom, and staying true to the people who matters the most. Moments like shooting down the world government's flag, Robin's I want to live! Or Roger's laugh when he found the One Piece itself, these are like timeless pieces of art that stick with you forever. Then there's Bleach. Out of the big three, it's obvious that Bleach stands out the most for its stylish fights, aura, and cool vibes. But at its core, it's about one's identity and about finding your place in the world. These shows have themes that never get old. That's why both longtime fans and newcomers still fell in love with them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Lots of other shonen anime have similar themes and emotional moments too, right? So what exactly made these three so special? Why are they the big three and not the others? To really get it, we need to look at how the big three became such a huge deal in the first place. The big three started within a few years of each other, and their anime adaptations followed soon after. They're all action-adventure stories with fantasy elements, crazy world building, and cool power systems. Oh, and they were all inspired by Dragon Ball, which is like the godfather of anime as we know it. The timing was perfect actually. See, these shows came right after Dragon Ball Z had finished, and Dragon Ball GT wasn't going so well. Fans were searching for something new, but still familiar. That's when One Piece, Naruto, and Bleach entered the chat. And since this show just kept going and going, fans stayed hooked for years. They became the golden goose of Weekly Shonen Jump, the biggest manga magazine in the world. Plus, TV networks and companies also hit the jackpot with these shows. I mean, think about it. They had endless episodes to air, which meant they could keep showing them day after day, week after week. And man, the fan bases were something else. You'd have Naruto fans, Bleach fans, and One Piece fans going at it 24/7 about which show was the GOAT. I mean, they'll still do it, and they'll probably keep debating it until the end of time. Compare that to the modern day anime, most shows now follow a seasonal format. They run for 12 to 24 episodes, take a break, and then come back later. Even the stories are faster paced, with shorter arcs. Plus, there's so much to choose from, but because there's so much content, people don't stick with one show for years, like they did with the big three. Seasonal anime are the big thing now, and once a season ends, everyone moves on to the next hot show. You see, the reason why My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Black Clover, and the other up-and-coming shonen anime couldn't start a new Big Three era is because the Big Three existed in a different time. Back in the 2000s, the Big Three had the advantage of being many people's first exposure to anime. Everyone was watching the same show, talking about the same things. But now, the internet has changed. Instead of few big shows dominating the scene, we now have thousands of options, all competing for attention. We binge one series, move on to the next big thing, and maybe revisit it if a sequel drops later. But the days of everyone railing around a single trio of anime goats, those days are gone. Though, if I had to name one modern anime that matches the intensity of the big three, it would be Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was absolute cinema the entire decade or so it lasted, but Attack on Titan has ended. Meanwhile, One Piece is still going strong, Bleach is back with its 1000 years blood work, and Naruto's story is still going through Boruto. Of course, it's not a bad thing for story to end. I'm sure plenty of Naruto fans are disappointed with the Boruto sequel, but even in terms of scale and cultural staying power, Attack on Titan couldn't quite catch up to the big three. I mean, remember that Area 51 raid? The fact that thousands of people were literally doing the Naruto run in the desert tells you everything you need to know. I would say Naruto has always been the easiest to get into out of the big three, and that's probably why it's had the strongest cultural impact in the West. One Piece, on the other hand, it's quite literally the best-selling manga of all time, and it's actually the second best-selling comic of all time, second only to Superman. And keep in mind, Superman has been around for nearly a century, while One Piece hasn't even reached 3 decades since its serialization began. To add to this, One Piece is created by a single author, whereas Superman has had multiple creators over the decades. That's right, One Piece is the best-selling comic of all time by a single author. Now, while it might take some time to get used to One Piece's unique character design and pacing, it has been absolutely blowing up these past few years. So many anime fans caught up during the pandemic. And let's be real, the One Piece live-action series is arguably the most prominent anime live-action adaptation ever. And most importantly, One Piece is still ongoing. It's not going to end for a few more years, so just imagine the absolute explosion that's gonna happen when Luffy finally becomes the king of pirates. The internet might literally break. Also, fun fact, One Piece is also the most pirated media of all time, which is kind of ironic considering it's about pirates. But yeah, One Piece, the most successful of the big three, hasn't even peaked yet. Then there's Bleach. You know how people love to joke around saying Bleach doesn't belong in the big three, it should be Dragon Ball, but that's just not how it works. Look, Dragon Ball is literally the grandfather of modern shonen anime. I mean, the original Dragon Ball manga has already wrapped up before One Piece even hit the shelves. Of course, Dragon Ball is also in a league of its own. At this point, Goku's face is probably more globally recognizable than Mickey Mouse. The big three is more about the specific moment in anime history. That 2000s era when Bleach, Naruto and One Piece were all running together and dominating the scene. After all, even after years of silence, when the 1000-year blood work finally got the adaptation it deserved starting in 2022, every single Bleach fan came out of their cave and took over the internet. Ultimately, the big three are products of their time. They rose to fame during a unique cultural moment when anime was exploding in the West. They had the time, space, and the audience to dominate. But the world has changed, and the people now quickly move on to the next big thing. That explains why the big three became what they were. Next, we're going to dive into how well the big three handled the fundamentals. One of these fundamentals is their unforgettable cast of characters. You know a story is huge when every character has their own fanbase. Like yeah, everyone loves Naruto, but then you have Sasuke with his dark, edgy vibe, and Kakashi being the coolest, most laid-back mentor ever. Pain talking about peace and suffering? Chills, man. Literal chills. Luffy is the ultimate shonen protagonist. He's goofy, strong, and endlessly inspiring, but the same goes for the Straw Hats and all the other major characters, or even the side characters. I mean, come on guys. This man Oda had us all crying over a sheep and a guy in a diaper. In Bleach, Ichigo is a Chad, but then there is Chad, who is a literal Chad, and then there are standout characters like Aizen. He's so iconic that even those who haven't watched the show know the meme about his master plan. Kind of like how everyone knows that Zoro is always lost. Moving on to the fights in the big three, they're all pure adrenaline and insanely iconic. Just think about the choreography and emotional weight in the battles like Naruto vs Pain, Sasuke vs Itachi. Peak! And don't forget the legendary moment where Rock Lee dropped his weights. One Piece fights focus more on emotional stakes than pure battle IQ. Moments like Luffy vs Wussy, Zoro's nothing happened, Luffy punching the Celestial Dragon in the face, or Luffy undoing the birdcage while punching Doflamingo to free Dressrosa, or even Luffy walking past the Yonko, Kaido and Big Mom. Pure emotional aura. Bleach, on the other hand, gave us some of the slickest and most cinematic battles ever. From Ichigo's Bankai reveal to his intense fight against Ulquiorra. His clashes with Grimmjow, Aizen and Yuha, Bleach masterfully combines style, stakes and raw power. Alright, now that we've covered everything, let's get straight to the point. Why the big three will never be dethroned? The big three will never be dethroned because there will never be another big three. It's simple as that. The world has changed, monoculture is almost gone, which means that no single anime or group of anime will ever dominate pop culture like they once did. And that's okay. The big three are timeless and they share important themes and motives that fans really connect with. It's all about working hard, believing in yourself, staying loyal to your friends and never giving up. So what about you? Which of the big three is your favorite? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. This channel is just getting started and your support means so much. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.